Welcome back to the podcast, everyone.
Welcome to the Open Brotherhood, everyone. So good to have you back, brother. So good to be here in this space, in our small studio, virtual studio.
Our virtual studio. Yeah. We
Yeah.
had to take a couple of weeks hiatus just with life and things that panned in. But this is an episode that I'm really excited about because y'all don't know, but I've known Samir went on a little bit of a hero's journey over this last week, which is partially why we didn't get an episode recorded. So I'd love to just create space for you to, share a bit about your experience. I am equally curious because I haven't heard anything about it yet. So like I'm just really interested to hear, we've been talking about this idea of like venturing out into nature and utilizing the spaciousness that nature creates to do the inner work. And so being that you kind of did a solo trip, I'd love to hear all about how that process went.
Absolutely, yeah. I haven't shared with Adam anything about my trip. So I'm really curious also what comes up for you when I'm sharing that, because it was a real journey for me, and very unexpected. So what I planned was to do a solo trip for a week here in Sweden, in the mountains, and I was really excited to do that for a longer time, actually. And so after our conversation, and as you know, I'm also right now in Bill Plotkin's Soulcraft book, and which really very much resonates also with me in the process that I am right now about being more in attunement with my soul path. So what is like the imprint in me, let's say the I don't like the name purpose, but the meaning. I really believe that everyone that comes to this beautiful earth has a gift. And Bill Plotkin talks about that. That's actually soulcraft, what it is, right? So it's a very embodied attribute that everyone has that comes with the body, with the soul. And the best way to really dive into it is if you are deeply in connection with what you are. This is nature. You are nature, right? So if you are doing a solo trip in nature, then you cut off every distraction and be more immersed with the stillness within you and in attunement with what you are. And so I prepared, and I know that there will be really harsh weather conditions. So we had a lot of rain. I was like, oh gosh, being out there during heavy rain, it's not fun in the mountains. But anyway, I decided then I will still do it. And so I went on the trip, and it was like the first day where I had to go up about 5 kilometers. I don't know how much that is in miles, but a pretty long part where it goes like up to 500 meters. So it was really demanding. And on that path, my hiking boots, the sole of my hiking boots broke.
Oh, delaminated?
Yeah, delaminated. And was, oh my gosh, that's the first day. It was raining and it was slippery, and I was like, oh no, shoot. So I still continued, and then I arrived at the top, and I said, okay, maybe I can fix it with some duct tape, and I tried it, but it was all wet. And then I had to cross the swamp, and was like knee deep, and then I was just, everything was soaked. And so I was running through the swamp, and then I felt like a lot of emotions coming up. It's like, oh shoot, I planned for all of this. my shoe broke, and I just already saw like, how can I make like the next 50 kilometers with broken boots, because I know that there will be some more inclination. And then I felt some pain in my knee. So, and that's an old story. So I have like a kind of runner's knee developed back in the days, like 15 years ago. I was doing a lot of running, marathon, and I developed a runner's knee. So it's a really painful element in the knee joint and in the hip, and that was the cause why I couldn't run anymore. And the physicians were aware, and they said like, yeah, that's can't fix that, because it also has to do with my physiology in the hips. And so that was, back in that day, it was like devastating. I was devastated to hear that, because I was so much into running, and hearing that, I went into complete emotional, like in a depression. It was really bad for me. So going forward now, 15 years, being on the trail, it was like a shock moment for me, because like through the sensation, the old story came back into my mind. The old emotions came back. Like, oh my God, no, this can't be now.
Yeah.
Because I never thought about that it is also related to another passion that I have, which is hiking. And then this pain, I started to ignore it first. I was like, it's fine. So I just continued. And then I had to go also down again in one part for a long, long time. And that was so bad on my knee that I couldn't bear the pain anymore. So now I was stuck there, like having severe knee pain. My shoes were broken. I was completely soaked in water. Everything was wet. And then something interesting happened. I started to surrender. I started to surrender into that, into the sensation, to the pain, into the situation that I found myself in. And then a feeling of excitement and joy came up. It's really weird. I never had that before. Because as I said, like as I shared before, 15 years ago, when I was still running and then developed this runner's knee, and after the diagnosis that I can't run anymore, that I can't participate in marathons anymore, that was so devastating for me.
Sure.
Right? But now, due to also the inner work that I was doing and still doing, and I found this inner space in me. And that was such a deep moment for me to witness, wow, I can separate from it. I can see I can feel the pain. I can see myself in that situation, not being the victim, but just surrendering into what is present right now.
Yeah.
Okay, there's pain. Yes. I have like a really difficult situation now to find now a solution for. But I could do it from a space of inner stillness, and not in a space of frustration, of anger. And so I continued with a trail until I just couldn't walk anymore. So I decided to pitch up my tent. And yeah, before that was actually a very, very pivotal moment I would love to share too. I'm still processing it, because I just was just a couple of days ago. There was a very, very profound moment when I was walking through the swamp area, and I was just connected to my body. I was connected to the pain constantly. Like every step was so draining and painful. And while I was walking, all of a sudden a snake was crawling exactly next to me, like on my foot away. I was like, what is that? And then I saw this snake. And that was such a beautiful moment for me, like being in the wilderness, being with the self, with myself, all that I am, the pain, the emotions, this heaviness on my shoulder that I'm carrying. And then seeing this unbelievable, beautiful creature just passing by, touching me, just taking its own way. It was really, really moving to see that. And yeah, I still have to process that moment, what it means to me. And so when I pitched up the tent and prepared for the night, I was like lying in my tent and I had a lot of pain with the knee, and I had a hard time to fall asleep. And then the night came in, and I heard an animal approaching my tent. It was running towards me, and I was so in a deep connection of this whole situation, of being in this tent, being with my body that is in pain. And I heard this animal, but I was not scared. I was just like, oh, there's something coming now. And it stopped next to my tent, and I heard it sniffing. And then it just took away again. I was like, whoa, what was that? Probably an elk, because there are a lot of elks there. And there was another moment of like this feeling, this deep connection of life. Just being another body in the presence of life that is moving through you, moving around you. And this is such a beautiful experience that one can have, of course, when you are just taking down all the filters. I mean, when we are living our day-to-day life, having our work, having family, being in the society, we have all these filters on. And sometimes it's hard then to really connect with the self. When I'm talking with the self, I really mean the oneness with everything. Capital self, capital S. And when we are in our element, then these filters are down, and then you have a more deeper connection with it. And you can sense life within you, around you, being life. So that was for me really, really profound. And the next morning I woke up and it was still raining, and I packed my stuff. It was really cold then because I was wet. I have a down sleeping bag which was completely soaked with water. I was like, oh gosh, this is not as I planned. And so I was at the cross point where I could just take a shortcut and go to the next village, or I continue. And I first thought like, okay, I will try. There was something in me that still wanted to continue.
Sure.
Yeah. There was still this, I don't want it to give up.
Yeah.
I don't want to give up.
That drive to complete what you'd set out to
do. Exactly. And then, I was testing my knees, like, oh, actually it's okay. And then I tried to fix the boot, and I was like, it doesn't matter if it's wet, everything. But as soon as I packed everything, I put my backpack on my back, and having this additional weight, I just felt like, no, my knee is not supporting it anymore. So I took like couple of meters, and then I decided like, oh no, I have to go back. And again, usually I would be frustrated not finishing what I planned to do, right? But in that moment, again, this deep peace was in me, and this deep surrendering to, okay, that's what happened. It's fine. It's meant to be like that. And for me now, also to, after this, to reflect on that and see like, yeah, I got what I needed. I got to see what I needed to see to be with this situation, that my body was in pain, couldn't move further. And my old self would say like to give up. But now I see like to surrender into it. So there's a difference between giving up and surrendering. So I took the shortcut. I went down, which was very painful too. But I made it. I made it down then to the village, and there was a campground, and I went there. And it's so funny, although it was just 2 days, but still it felt like coming back into civilization. And I mean, you know how that feels as soon as you are, like, we always say we are out. Actually, it's not going out, it's going in, and then coming out of it. So when I came out, it was so weird. It was so weird because moments ago I was in the pain, up in the forest, in the mountains, and trying to figure out like which step to take not to fall, and how to balance the weight so that it's not too much on my knee. And then I was sitting there in this cozy warm room and having a coffee, talking with this man who's working there. It's such a parallel world that we're living in.
Yeah.
So interesting. Yeah, so that was my journey.
Definitely sounds like it had all of the facets of what one would consider that hero's journey, of like where you kind of are meeting hurdle after hurdle after hurdle after hurdle, and it's like this test to see how are you going to show up, right?
Yeah.
Like, are you going to fall into the old patterns? Are you going to fall back into that victimhood? Are you going to fall back into the anger and frustration? Or can you be with the isness of the situation? Can you just be with, and I think that's the beautiful thing about like setting out on these journeys, that like, especially even when you have like this destination, if you will, of where you're setting off to, like, it never is about the destination. It is about the journey and every step that goes in between. So it doesn't really matter if you get to that final destination, because the final destination is getting to that answer. It's getting to that next aha moment that gives you the next stone in your path of your hero's journey. And it's like, there's never just one hero's journey. It's like a multitude of hero's journeys that you're going throughout your lifetime that inevitably leads you back to that place, like what you were touching on in the beginning, that Soulcraft really talks about. It's like getting into alignment with the soul path, with the path that your very isness, the soul spark that exists within the body, came here to enact on the world.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. Yeah, it is. It's a really, it's an interesting perspective on being on the journey with so much obstacles, and there will always be obstacles if you are out there. I mean, if you really do a solo trip, then there will always be obstacles. And it's really the question, as we said, like how can you go through these obstacles? How can you find solutions without losing yourself?
Yeah.
Without being stuck in any old patterns. And I've done a lot of hiking trips, but this one was so profound because I could see still the beauty in all the details. Although from like looking from outside, it's like, that's horrible. Right? Like, why are you doing this?
Yeah.
It's so stupid. But there's a lot of, I mean, I always hear it, like so much wisdom in pain. The pain is the messenger.
Mm.
And to see the beauty, that was something outstanding for me. Still trying to fathom that there's still beauty in that. And then the stillness, just this pureness of being in vibration, in attunement. That is something that I really cherish, and which I'm like, my mind is still like, okay, how can I still go? Although, okay, my knee is not working properly. Maybe I don't have to put so much weight. Maybe I do a day trip, something like that. It's still processing, still going on. But and then I also came to the conclusion that I don't have to do hiking trips. I can just be out there, just pitch up a tent and be there.
Yeah.
Because this is also something that, and I love what you meant with what we said around the hero's journey, because when we hear that, it's always like, okay, we have a path that we have to walk. We have like a challenge that we have to finish, a start finish, like Odysseus on his journey, and so many monsters that he has to kill. And that's the classical hero's journey. But the hero's journey is happening inside of you.
Mm.
And it's happening, can happen even if you are if you're not moving at all.
Yeah.
It's still a journey that you're going through. I mean, we talked about, before we jumped in quickly, about the session that we both were that we've done yesterday with our good friend Casey, who was hosting it. And that's a journey too.
Yeah.
It's called a journey for a reason. Because it is in a universe that we are exploring. And we can explore that through physical movement. We can also explore that through stillness, meditation. So there are a lot of doors, there are a lot of portals where you can go on a journey.
Yeah. I think that's, to like bring it back to what Bill Plotkin talks about in Soulcraft, it's like he's referring to this idea of the hero's journey being what's called a vision fast, right? Or a vision quest, where you're going out into nature and 4 days, 4 nights, not having any food. He suggests not even having a tent, like just putting your pad down on a tarp and using another tarp to create a shelter. Like everything's rudimentary because he wants you to be as immersed out in nature as possible. And like, that's one form of journey that you can take. You can also do, just like you said, go pitch a tent in your backyard and just turn the phone off, disconnect from family, like tell your family like, hey, I'm doing this thing. Don't come bother me. Allow me to be in my space and just be in the isness of the moment. It could also be just sitting on your meditation mat for 5 to 10 minutes and just being in the isness of what is in that moment. And it's like, hearing you talk about this like hero's journey of, one, even deciding to do the trip while it's pissing down rain, like that in and itself takes courage, because those of you that have ventured out into nature and gotten caught, like, you can do your best to like see the silver lining in the moment, but like when you're stuck out in nature and you're soaking wet to the bone, all of your
Yeah.
stuff is soaking wet, like unless you've
Yeah.
experienced that, you don't really know the mental toll that it begins to take on you
Mm.
and how easy it is to spiral into
Yeah.
the victim mentality of like, why is this happening to me? Like, what, why does it
Mm.
have to be this way? Why did the trip have to get ruined? So and so forth.
Mm.
But like the underlying message that I at least heard you express throughout this whole thing is exactly in the name of our podcast, Open Heart.
Mm.
You
Mm.
stayed
Oh,
with an open
beautiful.
heart throughout the entire process,
Mm.
regardless of what life, nature was throwing your way.
Mm.
Boots breaking, getting stuck into the bog, like constantly being soaking wet, knee pain. I mean, like, I'm sure so many listeners are like, that sounds like a fucking awful trip. Like, how can you stay in that space? But like,
Yeah.
that is life,
Yeah.
right? Life will always throw us these like hurdles and
Mm.
these challenges because it's always trying to see, are you going to stay in that open heart, or are you going to take that elevator and go right back up into the mind and then start running through of like, woe is me, why
Mm.
is this happening? Like trying to find reasoning behind the things happening the way that they're happening instead of just accepting that it's meant to happen that way because it's meant to
Right.
take us in a certain direction that only this experience can take us in.
Right. Yes. And you know, the beauty of all of that is it's already, the answer is already in you, right? I mean,
Yeah.
it is something that needs to be triggered. It needs to be touched so that it comes up and that you can see it, that you can really experience it. And um, because there was fear, of course. Yeah, I was scared. I really was scared because it was slippery and I was alone. I was like, shoot, man, if you just fall down now, if you just slip, and because I don't have real good grip on my
Yeah.
boots anymore,
Yeah.
right? I was like, what a stupid thing, Samir. I mean, if you just now fall and then you die, or you just broke a leg and you cannot move. And remember when I said to you, like, I was thinking about not taking my phone with me,
Yeah. Yeah.
and then like I had a serious discussion with my family, and they said like, no, you have to take your phone with you, and it makes sense. I mean, and yeah, there was fear, but it was not. And I say that from a deep, honest place within me. It was not taking control, and this is something new to me because I was doing trips, and then I remember also that fear was my also somehow, of course, it's our best friend
Mm-hmm.
in difficult situation because it is preventing us from danger, right? But it can also block us from certain experiences.
Yeah.
And I mean, I was working many years as an wilderness guide. I was guiding groups of people through the wilderness, in the unbelievable harsh conditions. I mean, I was an Arctic outdoor guide, and it was really really difficult environment with really really severe cold temperatures, very low temperatures, and if the group was not working accordingly, then we could get stuck, and this is really hard then to find help because we were alone for a week out there in the wilderness. And there, of course, I always were very very cautious, like, oh, working like, okay, nothing, yeah, everything just needs to be controlled, right?
Mm-hmm.
Because I'm responsible for this group. Um and this mentality I took also on my solo trips, or I took on my trips when I was going out also with my wife. We do trips, and this is the first time where I could go out and just be present with what is, not putting myself into danger, of course, um, but not being in almost like not full mad control. Everything needs to be planned exactly how it should be, and so to just keep some variables open, to let life also move through it, and then be able to touch certain things within you. So this is something very interesting, and I will actually go out on Friday with a friend of mine who's supporting me in going deeper into my experience. So we want both to go out for a short hiking trip, just a day trip, but then so that he can hold space for me and just going through this experience again. Very curious what comes up then.
Yeah, it's what you're speaking to is the importance of like creating space for integration from an experience, right? Like, we talked about that a little bit when you touched on, we both experienced that session yesterday, and I last minute decided that I was going to participate in Casey's session, and so it's like I didn't create space afterwards, and like we touched on a little bit before we hit record, like I ended up having, I had some work that I had to get done afterwards. My wife is pet sitting for a friend, so she is out of the house for, the next 4 days. So I have to deal with all of like the animal chores and everything like that. And then I had an impromptu 2-hour meeting that had to go through and like really brainstorm some stuff and like heavily be stuck in the mind for a little bit. And it was interesting at how, I don't want to use the word exhausted because I wasn't exhausted, but like mentally and emotionally taxed at the end of last night, because I didn't have enough space after that session to allow it to kind of continue to unfold. It was like I had to just kind of shut it down. And then all of a sudden it was like, even though I felt really great after the session, my body was like, okay, maybe I did process through some things that I just wasn't really consciously aware of that I processed, that now I can feel that toll that it has taken on myself. And so I just I had to take a little bit of extra time and just create some downtime to allow that to continue to move through. But like how often, and I'm very guilty of this, especially early on in my journey of just like going from one experience to the next experience to the next experience to the next experience in this like mindset that there's this final destination of healing where I'm eventually going to get to this point where I feel like I've gotten over all of my stuff, where I'm not doubting myself anymore, where I have the confidence that I want, where I can just speak however I want and be however I want. And in that sensation, in that idea that there was this final destination to get to, I was missing the magic of the realizations from each experience because I wasn't creating enough space for them to fully integrate. And that's something that I learned when, I traveled down to Peru, and, there's a couple of fold reason for bringing this up. We'll get there in a second. But, when I was in Peru and experienced ayahuasca, experienced powerful breathwork sessions, experienced things that radically changed how I looked at the world, it kind of was that realization that this is actually one of those profound experiences that I'm going to need to take a long time to unpack. And, it's now been 7 years since that experience, and I've yet to sit with ayahuasca again because I feel like I'm still unpacking some of the stuff that I experienced in those journeys. And with breathwork, honestly, I don't feel like I need to connect to that medicine because I can get to those same spaces in a breathwork session. But one of the things that I experienced in that journey and in those breathwork sessions, and you'll understand here in a moment why I'm bringing this up, was that the whole thing was guided by nothing but a drum. And you were talking about one of the realizations, and I'd love for you to unpack this a little bit, that you had during yesterday's session of like, this idea where we've both been on this journey of holding breathwork sessions. And correct me if I'm wrong, but I think I'm safe in saying that we've both kind of rigidly stuck to the structure that we teach in somatic breath work
Yeah.
out of respect for the practice, but out of also, if we're teaching it this way, then we should always do it this way. And in a way, I have personally felt like that's actually started to create a little bit of a plateau in my personal practice because I'm not allowing for the practice to expand.
Yeah. Yeah. Exactly. It's like and I said that also to our friend Stephen Jaggers, like it's like an organism that is breathing. This whole practice, this whole modality, no matter which modality, everything that we create is organic. It's a living being, and it grows. It needs space to grow, right? So as soon as we are trying to sustain life, if we are trying to constrict life, right, then it starts to create tension.
Yeah.
And so the more space we are creating, the more we have also the capacity to allow life to unfold and to develop, to transform. And I agree. And I was smiling because we both jumped on the session last minute. I was sitting there. We were just talking about before we had this call with Casey, like Casey, you and me, and we were like, I'm not sure if I go in. I really don't feel I need that. But parts of me was like, Samir, you had a really profound experience a couple of days ago, and you're really not integrating it. So something is holding back here. What is it? And it was really last when she was already in the meditation and intention part, and I was just taking my my headphones and created a space for me to lay down on the ground. And now I shared with you that it was really a powerful session, not through emotional expression, but I felt pain again. And this, again, you see now the connection again, right? This time it was my shoulder or the shoulders. And I always have, when I'm breathing, I have pain in my shoulders, which is also related to my ancestral lineage, father, mother. So I understand that there's a lot that I'm holding on to. And I think my experience on the trip helped me also during the session to be with the pain. Because usually in a session, a breathwork session, I'm moving, I'm shouting, I'm trying to move the pain.
Sure.
Right? But this time I just allowed the pain to be there and was breathing into the pain, with the pain. And it was really profound. It was really interesting to sit with. And like, this is my personal relation with pain, because, and I bet a lot of the listeners here can maybe relate to it. That we are, of course, we don't want to feel pain, right? I mean, this is a natural response. But I have an old story about pain and an old wound, childhood wound around pain, and trying to numb it, and which also shared here with my the circumstance that I grew up. So this is for me a really, really profound time now, to being able to sit with the pain. And we hear that often, like, yes, sit with the pain, sit with emotion. And before I was like, yeah, screw it.
Yeah. Or even said. Just like that. What is it? What does that even mean? Like,
exactly.
What does it mean to sit with my pain? Like, how do I even? And maybe that's something that, like, we can kind of expand on a little bit, because you're speaking to one of those, like, valuable aspects of what it means to do the work, and like, I'm using work as like a very broad term here, because for you, doing the work might mean therapy, it might mean breath work, it might be plant medicine, like however you are working through your own stuff. I would go as far as saying, and I'm just using my own experience, like I started doing the work because I wanted to not feel the pain. I wanted to
Mm.
not feel the anguish and the regret and the remorse
Right.
and the constantly wishing that, like, why couldn't my childhood have been different? Like
Mm.
all of those aspects, instead of just accepting everything as
Mm.
it is,
Mm.
accepting that everything had to happen that way, because if it was meant to happen any other way, it would have been.
Mm. Mm.
It's like, when I first got on the healing journey, it was like this wanting to get away from having to sit with it. I want to just get it
Exactly.
out of my body. I just don't want to deal with it anymore. It's
Right.
like that throwaway mentality, right? Like, I don't want to deal with this thing that might be, slightly
Mm.
broken, so I'm just going to throw it away and go buy something new,
Yeah.
instead of like taking a moment to look at it and, can we actually like repair it, or can we even make it better than where it
Right.
was before, through just being with what is.
Mm. Mm. Absolutely. And yeah, I love what you said, because it's so human. And the interesting thing is, it's not just a general realization and it's like, oh, now I understand what inner work is. Because as I said, like for me, this, the relation with pain, this just came now for me, this realization, this
Sure.
experience. Although mentally I could grasp it, sit with the pain, be with the pain, but I could not physically and not emotionally really grasp it on these deeper levels, right? Because I did not had enough space for that.
Sure.
And
Sure.
this is I think what is so interesting, because I bet we all go in when we associate, or we are all associating in a work with, I want to get rid of that. I want to solve that. Even when we use words like integration, we want to integrate it so I don't have to feel that anymore.
Sure. Yeah.
This idea of it will evaporate. But I more and more believe truly that it's all about just experiencing it fully. Experiencing it, because what happened in the past, the reason why we are carrying a wound is because due to this traumatic event that happened, our body was shutting down. It was taking itself off from it. So it cut us off from the experience. And so the real integration is this experience of it, to allow it to experience it, to feel it, to sense it, but with a different awareness to it,
Yeah.
not with the identification of it. And I think this is the work, and this is again where self-awareness, inner space comes in. I think this is really the profound key to really have deep integrational processes happening in you. Because as I said, when I started talking about space and the organism, the modality that we are also changing, and because it's too tight, right? Again, space is what it needs for life to unfold, to process, and life will always find a way to create space.
Yeah.
And even the hardest shell will break, and there will develop into a volcano if there's a lot of pressure, right? So life will always find a way to create space. And but coming back also to the modality about somatic breathwork and adaptation to, like, where am I right now in my process, in my life, and what feels stuck in my life? Where can I create more space? And I think that goes also in this direction of, how do I want to host sessions? How do I feel? What is the next chapter? What is the next realm that I can explore? And I think this is something beautiful if we see this analogy of a living being that is unfolding, that is growing, that is also experiencing itself, right? Because yesterday I was sharing with you that I have some ideas how to integrate some new parts into the sessions, but I have no idea if this is working or not, because it's an experiment, it's an experience that needs to be done, and then to see like, oh, is this experience, where is this experience taking us? Yeah, what comes out of that? And I'm really curious about the evolution also of somatic and breath work. I mean, it's not really about breathing. It's not really about breath work.
Yeah.
The breathing part is just the entrance. It's the door. But I think the container, the space that we are creating during sessions, that's where the magic lies. It's embracing this, again, this living being. Like when you're in a space with people, it's an organism of itself.
Mm-hmm.
And how much space can you create in that container and allow a process to happen with your guidance? Like you put, of course, also an intention in it.
Right.
Where can you direct this this experience? So it's interesting, and still giving enough space so that everyone can have also his own experience in it.
Yeah.
It's not necessarily your agenda. I don't mean that, but still the framework. This is something where it's interesting if you're playing with it.
So I'd love to just like rewind a little bit, just kind of back to what you were saying about like experiencing the pain and like having the pain come up, you know, from like this old runner injury during the hike, but also like the pain in your shoulders during the breathwork session and things like that are coming up with them. And like, as you were saying that, it brought up the visual for me, and those that didn't grow up in the 80s and 90s, you might not get this reference, but we used to have these things called VHS tapes. And, you know, if you were watching that tape and you stopped at a certain point and took it out of the VCR, when you plugged it back in, it would start from that exact same point. You know, it's not like DVDs where you pop it in and you get to restart back to wherever you want to restart and pick different chapters. Like that's why like the rental places had stickers on them that said, "Be kind, please rewind," because otherwise they'd have to take the time to rewind it back to the beginning. And like, y'all might think that this is like, how is this relevant? But it's relevant because this is what our body does. When we have experiences, it's recording it on our internal reel and tape. It's like it has its own VHS tape that it's recording onto. And when we experience something that is beyond what we have the capacity and space to hold, it's like it ejects that VHS tape and it's paused right when that eject happened. And then it goes back on the shelf. Well, that VHS tape is still paused in that experience, and your body is holding that. So it's like when we talk about creating space, whether that's through a hero's journey out in nature or a vision quest or a breathwork journey or just going and spending an hour with yoga, like whatever you can do to create space with yourself, it's creating moments where you can basically sit down and you can pick these VHS tapes off, pop them in the VCR and click play.
Yeah.
And watch the experience as the witness instead of the experiencer. And see, like, can you actually make it and watch the whole rest of the film and be okay with watching the rest of the film? At the end of that film, if you're still okay and you're still feeling safe within your system, are you okay letting go of that tape? Are you okay actually being like, you know what? This has served its purpose long enough. I'm going to send it back to the rental place. I'm not going to carry it anymore. Don't forget to rewind the tape before you send it back.
I love this analogy.
You know, I'm always good for an
Uh,
analogy.
yeah, this is so sweet. This is so beautiful. The VH tape. But you're spot on. You're spot on, Adam. And that's like where when we talk about trauma that is frozen in your body, right?
Yeah.
And it's I mean, we of course we have to be careful talking about trauma with a capital T. I mean, everything is recorded, and everything that we experience can be, for one, a traumatic experience, for others, maybe minor stress.
Yeah. Yeah.
So it's very subjective what it is. Sometimes, because sometimes we just downplay situations that happened in the past and say like, that was nothing. Why should I bother about this? But maybe you did bother when you were a 3-year-old,
Yeah.
right? Or a 6-year-old, because that you processed this whole situation completely different.
Yeah.
Now, through the lens of an adult, it seems like ridiculous sometimes, that nothing to really worry about. But it's the tape, as you beautifully explained. The tape is on pause.
Yeah.
It's not finished, the movie. And yeah, we are carrying a huge video library in us. So, and I just also want, for everyone who is listening, I mean, the goal is not to get all the tapes out of your life and try to work on everything simultaneously. I mean, the more I also doing this work as an emotional health coach, the more I also realize that, again, it's the experience of life, being with who you are, the stories that you collected throughout your life, to be okay with it. I think this is what at the end is the most important thing.
Yeah.
To accept yourself, to love yourself, and create enough compassion for yourself. Because otherwise we are on a rat race. Just as you said, like, we are going from one session to the next, from one experience into another, not creating enough space again,
Right.
for integration. And I think for those of you who are really struggling with things in your life, yes, try things out to get more clarity, to get more insights about what is blocking you, what is restraining you, what is keeping you away from experiencing maybe life to its fullest. But don't create. This is my opinion. Don't create like an addiction out of it.
Yeah.
Trying to. I think this is the reason why I don't like the term healing, because it suggests like that we are just fixing things in us constantly. So
I think you're touching on kind of one of those important reframes, and I think we've touched on this a little bit in some of the other episodes, but it's the healing journey isn't about fixing something that's broken. It's about getting to a point of accepting that you were never broken in the first place.
Right.
That you were already perfect from the moment that you were born. It's getting to that point of accepting all the parts of ourselves, the parts that we label as good and the parts we label as bad, the parts we want to push away and the parts that we want to like openly welcome. How can we welcome all of the parts of ourselves? Like, to me, that's what it means to heal. It means to let go of this pressure that we put on ourselves to be somebody other than who we truly are.
Yes, yeah, absolutely. Which is also the most difficult thing, right?
Yeah. Yeah.
I mean, because it somehow feels paradox to me. Like, on one hand, you feel that you are suffering, that things in your life are miserable. You're always attracting drama. Everyone is attracting drama. Like, this is part of this journey. And then you do this inner work or go into this realm of this bubble of healers and inner work, and everyone's just telling you, yeah, you just have to accept it. You accept yourself fully. And then I can also understand, it's like, how can I accept this? How can I accept this struggle that I'm carrying my whole life with me? The pain that I go through, the nightmares that I have. I mean, this is sometimes also hard to understand, and I'm still in the process of understanding it.
Sure.
For me, maybe it's easier to go into compassion and love, because that was also something that was in my life shaped. It was a survival protection mechanism, which then, when I do the inner work, I had easier access to it because I was fine-tuned in it. Today I just had a very profound situation with my wife, because I was telling her that I love her, and she was refusing. Yeah, she was doing some kind of stop it, and then she realized the patterns that we have. Like, I always give so much love, because in my childhood wound was, I wanted to fix everything through love. I gave more and more love. This is like the classical pleaser syndrome. Like, to give a lot of love to cover it over all the pain from the others, from my parents. Yeah. I don't want you to fight. I love you even more. Just feel how much I love you. And for her, it was like, in her childhood, it was like creating boundaries. Stop.
Sure. Yeah.
I don't want that. I don't want to feel you. And I like matching these two energies together, and it's interesting, so that we all come onto this scene, into this game and shaped in our childhood with certain attributes that on one hand are maybe a curse, but in that curse is also the gift,
right,
the power, right? So I really think that the inner work, and now we come into this topic, it's interesting, to define inner work. And for me personally, this is really the radical, not just acceptance, but beingness with what is in you. The ugly parts, the fun parts, the beautiful parts. And the ugly parts are the ones that we are aware of, because we have this voice that's constantly reminding us how ugly we are, how stupid we are, how not worthy we are. But to create this space and to allow this ugliness to be in that space and not turn to push it away. And also see the beautiful parts that are overshadowed sometimes.
Yeah.
Because we all carry so much beauty in us. Everyone is beautiful.
It makes me think of, are you familiar with the Gene Keys?
Yes, Richard Rudd.
Yes. So for those that are listening that aren't familiar with the Gene Keys, it's very, very similar to human design. And the Gene Keys were this like work of text that Richard Rudd channeled through a 3-day kind of out of body experience, if you will. Really beautiful story to look into. There's tons of interviews of Richard Rudd, like Deja Blue podcast. She does a bunch of interviews with him and where he talks about that story. But like within the Gene Keys, there are 3 aspects of every single Gene Key, and all of us, based upon our birth day, time, and location, will have certain of these Gene Keys within our design. But each Gene Key has a shadow, a gift, and a city. So like this higher divine aspect, if you will.
Mm. Mm.
And the way that he looks at it is that it's like the majority of people are operating in our current society from their shadow aspects. And that's
Mm.
why we have these symptoms of dis-ease, these symptoms of mental health issues, these symptoms of certain behaviors that present themselves because we are living in the shadow. The
Mm.
more we shift from living in the shadow to living in the gift, where we start accepting that part of ourself, we accept these patterns and behaviors as part of ourself. We start
Mm.
to love those patterns and behaviors, and through that loving, they start to transform into the gift. Then once we are living from that gift, it then opens up the space for the city, this higher divine aspect of ourselves to start to showcase. And
Mm.
in reading through that book, it's like this thick. If you're watching the video, I'm showing like maybe 2.5 inches, 3 inches thick book. Very, very dense read. But as you're reading through it, it's like there's so much resonance with the different aspects that it's starting to share. And it's like, dang, okay. In many ways, it kind of like calls you out on like where you're really living in that shadow aspect and how
Mm.
rigidly we almost want to stay there because
Mm.
it's like the uncomfortable known, right?
Yeah.
We get used to being in that aspect that to like think about shifting into the gift, to shifting into sharing the gifts that we bring to the world. That's scary because
Mm.
it's unknown. It's unknown what it means to show up in that way, to live in that way. But like, you know, and you were touching on this earlier when you were talking about like the fear that was coming up for you on that hike of like, what if I
Mm.
slip and fall? Like, what if something happens? What if I can't get off this mountain or my knee pain gets even worse that I need like medical intervention to help me? Like,
Yeah.
fear can be a like guiding light, but it can also be something that casts shadows,
Right.
all depending upon our relationship to that fear
Mm.
and how we allowed it to guide us in the direction that we're trying to go.
Right. Right. Beautiful. Yeah. Yeah. This is, I think, the relationship that you have, that one has with fear, is something that, it is a relationship. It is something that you work with.
Mm-hmm.
Something that you have to embrace, have to nurture. It's literally something that is living in you, that needs attention.
Right.
So, and as I said also before, like, fear is a messenger, pain is a mess. All of that are messengers. It's speaking through us, to us. And if we can create this attunement within us to open the channel to understand what it is saying, then we can create relationship. And then we can create like a connection with it. And then it can be your ally.
Yeah.
Right? This is what fear also is. It is an ally. Fear, the reason why we developed, evolution speaking, fear is the best protection mechanism against threat, right?
It
This
can
is
also
what
be the greatest catalyst for growth too, right? Like that
oh yeah,
idea of like what you fear the most is actually the thing that holds the greatest potential for growth.
right. But exactly, like, fear is nothing that should restrain you.
Right.
Fear is should making you more sharp, more aware. Like if you were a hunter during the hunter-gathering times, human existence, you had to go out, but fear was your ally because it helped you to be more focused,
Right.
not sloppy. Sloppy means death, right? So it creates awareness. It's so interesting. But the more we are creating a living condition, creating societies where we used fear as control, then life changes. Then the relationship to fear changes. Because the shadow of fear is that it makes us controllable.
Right.
Yeah. It brings us into a reactive state, into the survival state. And when we are in a survival state, then we have no space. It's just yes or no.
Right.
And this is actually what I see. And maybe we can also, actually, I would love to go deeper into that topic too, the societal aspect of fear, and also how we shaped this profound messenger into a tool of control. This is what we see is happening. This is what is restraining us to really go on a journey.
Yeah. Yeah.
To be exposed with our truth, the elements which we are made of. And yeah, it's interesting. It's interesting. A lot of interesting things we can talk about.
Yeah, I'd maybe on the next podcast episode, I'd love to dive into that idea and topic, because I mean, we're already an hour in, and if we dive into that today, we'll be here for definitely another hour at least. Because I think that is a topic that many of us kind of recognize is playing out within our world of like this fear mongering that gets put in place, this, you know, fear of being out in nature, fear of traveling to another country, fear of quitting the job and pursuing, you know, the passion that you actually have, the fear of, you know, asking somebody out that you've wanted to for a really long time, like all of these different fears that we allow to stop us in our tracks instead of giving us the excitement to keep moving in that direction. So, you know, maybe next time we can kind of unpack that and talk about like different ways that we can meet that fear, allow it to move through us and not keep us stuck in the place, but instead give us that fuel to drive us forward.
Yes. Excited. I'm excited to dive into that. Absolutely.
Well, I loved hearing about your hike and your hero's journey.
Thanks, brother.
There's a part of me that's like, I wish it could have been better weather for you, but I also truly believe that it happened exactly the way that it was meant to happen, because it gave you everything that you needed and were ready to receive in that moment.
100%. No, absolutely. I have no doubt, and I feel really blessed that I had this experience. Of course, there are parts of me still. I would lie if I would just say like I'm completely in alignment with it. There's of course also the ego aspect that is still like, damn, you prepared for everything and you missed this part, because it's a really, really beautiful hike. And but as I said, I think for me personally, this is a big thing. For me personally, this is a big thing, to be able to surrender into what was, what is, and not be in the judgmental persona. So no, I feel blessed, definitely.
Well, celebrating you for just the growth that experience brought. I mean, even just from the first episode that we started, of like you still talking about like actively working through like the victim mentality and all of that, to be able to be met with that and not fall back into that pattern, just goes to show the amount of work that you've been doing.
Thank you for reflecting that.
Yeah. Well,
amazing.
Thank you all for just being on another episode. If you made it all this way, I do want to just kind of prepare you all that we are going to continue having some gaps in releases of the episodes throughout this month. I'll be traveling down to Austin to teach another round of students in our in-person training starting next week. So we'll unfortunately miss our scheduled time to record that episode. And at the end of August, I will be going on a 7-day backpacking trip to
Yeah.
spend some more time out in nature and with myself, and see if I can't meet some of those fears that I still carry in my vessel.
Amazing. Thanks everyone for tuning in, and looking forward if you are still on board with us in this beautiful Open Heart Brotherhood podcast.
Yeah.
Sending much love to all of you.
Till next time.
Bye.